Hello, this will be a quick review of the Dualshock 3 as a baseline compared to the Hyperkin Brave Knight PlayStation 3 controller and the Power A PlayStation 3 controller. So I'll start with the Dualshock compared to the Brave Knight. The Hyperkin model is a little bit larger, um, retains a lot of the same design. The these slanted handles right here that are more of like a 45-degree angle instead of any kind of curve. It's really basic. It doesn't feel tremendous for a long time play. Um, uh, Pros of this pad as is the D-pad. I would say best out of the three pads we're going to look at, and the face buttons I think are really nice too. Um, this, as you might expect, has the analog pressure sensitivity, so you can use it for games like the Metal Gear Solid collection or the Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation 1 Classic. If you played on PS3, works great. Um, the drawbacks of this pad, the sticks, as I'll demo later, have really average to below average dead zone. Um, which results in you having to move the stick farther to activate even like a fine movement, and then it'll go from the fine movement to very, very quick movements, too fast, too fast. And the other things, it has L2 and R2 buttons instead of any kind of triggers. So, and as you'll see in a demo later, really not reliable at all. The R1, L1 buttons are okay, but I found in my play of Metal Gear Solid, the PlayStation 1 Classic, on the PS3, is that these are really unreliable. Like, if you're trying to quick select, like walking across the metal grating, so you're quick selecting and unselecting your weapons to cancel the noise, or let's say the sniper wolf fight, you have to rearrange your position, and then you hit R1 to bring up your the PSG rifle. Very unreliable, and that's costing you seconds, and especially on higher difficulties, very frustrating. And the same thing with the L1 button. Uh, so yeah, you'll see, and then the R2, L2, very unreliable. I'd say these two buttons just make this pad a non-starter for games that need it, unfortunately, which is a lot. So but really, it's almost a tragedy in relation to PlayStation controllers, and that this D-pad is the best I've seen out of including the DualShock or any other third party. Very nice. Start and select, basic, very basic home button. Um, does have the rumble functionality. It works, feels good. Doesn't have a cheap a cracking sound as some of them have. Feels good, works good. One thing this connector worries me. I like wired controllers for the lack of battery you have to worry about, so you can keep your controllers. So years down the line, the battery won't just be a dried up brick in there. It doesn't work. I like the reliability of a wired controller, but this, I don't know if you can see, it's just really not as tight as I'd like. And that kind of speaks to the quality of the construction of the pad overall. Um, so let's move on to the next pad. This is the Power A. I don't know if there's a specific model to it. It's wired. I know they've had a couple variations of wireless with a dongle, but for the same reasons, I like the wired here. And this one, it also is a little bit loose right here, honestly. Sorry, let me bring that in. So, but otherwise, this pad is pretty nice. It does not have rumble, does not have 6-axis, so you got to keep that in mind. Obviously, the Xbox 360 layout, a lot of people prefer that, so that's up to you. But some other nice features is the concave sticks right here. Um, just more pleasant to rest your thumbs for longer periods of play. One thing, this texture that might look like a rubberized grip is not. It's a hard plastic. It's the uh, same material as the rest of the smooth plastic, but it's just been scored in this pattern to make it easier to grip. And it does the job. I just want to point out that don't expect a rubberized grip of any kind, but that can be a bonus too, because over a long period of time, the rubber, that part might be a prime candidate to wear off and make an unpleasant feel for your pad. So face buttons are really nice too. same as the Dualshock and the Hyperkin, the analog pressure sensitivity. So in a game like Metal Gear Solid, you can that uses a square button to bring up your weapon without firing yet. You can do that. So it's very dependable control for that. Not sure if I mentioned, does not have vibration, does not have 6-axis. But the standout features of this pad are the sticks, as I'll demo later. Best dead zone out of the DualShock. On top of the DualShock, and Hyperkin is definitely in last place, but even better for shooters than the DualShock. I'm very confident saying that, and you'll see why. It's just really nice. The big difference you're going to see if you have to track a moving enemy and try to get a headshot, this pad, I think you'd have a much higher success rate out of 100 times. If you did it on both pads, you'd have a much higher success rate with this. But my favorite features, though, are these are very nice tactile feedback on the L1, R1. So if you're trying to quick select and or equip, unequip items like Metal Gear Solid, works very nice, very dependable. It reacts to just the way you want it to. And then see how you can see these. You got these concave triggers right here that feel like triggers, respond like triggers. Very pleasing. And that design eliminates that your thumb sliding off, because these are sloped down. Not sure I really understand this design in the first place, but that's what we got. So that's what we can compare to. So very nice there too. The only other thing I point out about this pad is definitely the lightest out of all three pads, and it's probably a big deal because it doesn't have the battery and the rumble motors. That's probably what the mass we're missing. So it feels lighter, which I would prefer it to have a little bit more heft to it, but overall it's honestly, for a game that you're not using 6-axis, or if you don't care about rumble that much, which I really don't, this is my chosen pad right here. This is the primary one I'll reach for. I like its cord. I think it has looks about 6 or 7 foot cord. So it's good enough to sit away from the couch and play it. In fact, I think I'd rank the D-pad second to the Hyperkin, but better than the DualShock for the Power A. So the Power A has a better D-pad, in my opinion, than the DualShock. Good face buttons too. Has the LED. As you can see, I have the taking up controller 2 position, so it has the LED, kind of like the Xbox, or exactly like the Xbox controller. So that's pretty much it. I'd rank, like I said, unless you need 6-axis, which I really don't play any games that do, this is the pad I'll reach for. And then the DualShock, it's old reliable, but as you know, very hard to find legitimate ones these days. If you're looking at eBay and you see one that's between $20 and $25 free shipping, oh, it's in a nice DualShock package, that's a legit controller. It is not. So, and you'll feel that immediately. You'll see how loud the and cheap sounding the L3 R3 clicks. I guess I can do that real quick. This has a nice tactile response too, and then the Brave Knight, yeah, same thing. So actually, all these feel pretty nice to click the L3 R3 sticks. But the one in terms of recommending purchases, straight up, bottom line, the Power A, yes, it goes anywhere from $15 to $20 on Amazon from what I've seen, and maybe you can get even cheaper. But I would suggest this. I have read rumors that the wireless version of this pad does have an increased dead zone. So I'm not 100% on that. If you know of any information on that, sure, let me know. The Brave Knight pad, I would not recommend, just because the flaws are too major. These, if you get this in your hand and you see how they play, it's like even on a GTA 5 accelerating, you have to almost listen for the engine of the vehicle to see if you're still accelerating or not, because you don't know. It's really bad. It's unfortunate because, like I said, this has the greatest D-pad I've felt. It reminds me of the NES Nintendo Entertainment System D-pad. It just feels really nice. I wish I don't know. I wish there was a way you could take this D-pad and transplant it on another controller. But face buttons are nice too. So if you, like I said, D-pad face button focus game, if that's what you're going to use it for, sure. But I think that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm using Metal Gear Solid V Ground Zeroes to test because the equipping of the weapons, the L2 and R2 triggers for binoculars, and the aiming will give us a good standard of tests. So here we go. We'll start with the aiming, and keep an eye on the right stick, and you can see how fine the control you have. But at the same time, on the DualShock 3, you do have to move the stick a good amount to get it to start recognizing it. And then if you push too fast, you'll accelerate too much. So it's pretty good. I mean, it's the standard controller. It's pretty good. But the R2, L2 works as you expect on the DualShock. It's the default controller, so it works. L2 clicks in to get your intel on this. And one thing we'll check is you can see the L1, R1 buttons are really sensitive, and they give a decent tactile feedback, and it's nice. So now let's check another one. This is the Power A wired controller, and I think the first thing that you'll notice, hopefully you'll see it, is how sensitive it is. There's very little dead zone. I'm very convinced that there's less dead zone on this pad than the DualShock 3. You get really fine controls. Like, you can see how little I'm moving the stick, and the game is recognizing this input. So for games that require fine controls, if you get comfortable with this pad, first-person shooters, etc., you could have a lot of success, and it feels really nice. Like, it just, along with the Xbox layout and the concave sticks, it feels really nice. And now let's check, one other thing that's nice is the L1, R1 bumpers. Very, very nice tactile feedback there. You can hear it better. Very, very sensitive, just as it should be. The L2 and R2, in this game especially, this is a game where the curved triggers really help you out here, because if you need to hold the binoculars to zoom in, on the DualShock 3, your finger can slide down the pad easily. So once again, you get good sensitivity with the R2 and L2, and on the last pad I'll show, you'll see a big difference and in responsiveness. And also, I didn't demo the DualShock buttons, but those should be pretty self-explanatory by now if you've played a PlayStation. But these buttons are very nice as well. They have the pressure sensitivity, the analog pressure sensitivity, so they function in the other games, like the other Metal Gear Solid games. You can raise your weapon without shooting, and do that like you need to play those games successfully on the PlayStation 3. I don't know what else I could. The sticks just feel really nice. The only thing is you don't have a rumble or 6-axis on this particular pad, so I think in other games that can cause issues. I can't remember in Metal Gear Solid 4, the Mantis fight, I think you need a 6-axis for that. But I mean, that's why you'll still have other pads. Probably still have a DualShock 3 of some kind or a 6-axis you can use. But for the most part in games, I mean, I played another shooter recently, Army of Two, Devil's Cartel, and the aiming is L1 to ready to weapon, just like in this game, and R1 to fire. Very pleasing. And then combined with the sticks, it's hard to explain, but I know once you feel the difference, you'll be able to see, like shooting enemies that are moving, you'll be able to line up your shots, follow them with the stick better, and pop off shots and track them with the cursor as they move. It's just very nice. So now let's go to the last pad I have. Okay, this is the Hyperkin Brave Knight controller. As you see, it retains a lot of the DualShock 3 look. Not quite as nice to feel in the hand, but let's look at how it performs. And one thing you'll notice just immediately by feel is this pad definitely has the most dead zone out of the three we're looking at. It's passable. I mean, especially just for like casual play, yeah, it'll work. But now let's go to the things I don't like about it. And you can see here that's really unpleasant, right? That massive acceleration. You didn't see that on the DualShock or the Power A. But here we go. This is what unfortunately really hurts this pad in terms of if you're going to be pleased with this purchase. So let's look at the R2 or L2 buttons. They're actually just buttons, they're not triggers at all, and that's fine. I can deal with that. That's fine. But unfortunately, how it plays in the game, it's borderline unplayable almost. Like let's look at the binoculars, which in this game you hold R2 to get your in scope, and look at this. I'm just holding it, and you'll see it's very difficult to keep it in. You got to push down really hard. Like my index finger is really straining, because if you just have like normal pressure, like that, you see how it clicks out. You can't play games with unpredictable input that you can't rely on, that you can't trust. And the L2 button is the same way. You really got to mash these, and once you have them pressed down, there's hardly any feedback to show, because they wiggle back and forth. You don't know what part of the button you need to hold down to keep it down. So you're really just naturally going to mash your fingers down and strain your fingers, and it's really unpleasant. And then another thing is the L1, R1 buttons. Not quite as good tactile feedback as the DualShock and the Power A, so I would also rank it last out of the three, and the L2, R2, R1, L1, which unfortunately, that's unfortunate, because the face buttons as well as the D-pad are better on this pad than the other two controllers. Like, it really just feels nice. Especially the D-pad. It's if you're going to play a D-pad focused game, this would, in that only uses the face buttons and minimal R1, L1, R2, L2, then this could be a pad that you could work with, because the sticks are really basic. They just don't have a pleasing feel. Have the dead zone. That was probably the worst out of all of them. So if you're going to play a game focused with D-pad and face buttons, this could be for you. But that's a look at how it plays in the game.